Next topic we're going to learn is conditional statements and loops. So these are the control statements we're going to learn about all those things. So what falls under control statements are if-else statement, switch statement, while loop, do while loop, for loop, jump statements, break statements, continue statements, go to statements. We're going to see each and everything. Firstly we'll just explain, then we'll go to VS Code and we'll see each and everything one by one. Alright, so what does control statements means in C? Control statements are the statements that after the flow of execution and provide better control to the programmer on the flow of execution. They're useful to write better and more complex programs. A program executes from top to bottom, except when we use control statements, we can control the order of the execution of the program based on the logics and values. So conditional statements, we can see if statement, if-else statement, and if-else or ladder, we can say, or switch statements are used. So this control statements basically divided in three parts. One is selection statements, iterative statements, and jumping statements. So this all four comes under the selection statements. If-else, if-else statement, switch, these all things come under the selection statement. Similarly, iterative statement we're going to use. There we're going to learn about while loop, for loop, do while loop. And third kind of control statement that is there is jumping statements. There we're going to use break, continue, and return. Those things we're going to see. Now first thing we're going to talk about if statement. What is that if statement, right? So an if statement consists of a boolean expression which is to be evaluated to be a boolean value. What does it mean is if statement will only be executed when it is true, otherwise it will not be executed. If the value is true, then the block is executed, otherwise next statement will be executed. So this is how the flow chart of it. So condition is going to there. If it is true, then this block is going to be executed. If it is false, then it's going to end it's going to skip this block of statement. So this is what if statement is. Similarly, with if, else statement also comes into the picture. So what does else statement means? So if else statement consists of two statements, if statement and else statement. When the expression in an if statement is evaluated to be true, the block is executed. Otherwise, else block will be executed. What we studied in the previous if statement is that this condition is there. If it is true, then this block will be executed, this blue block. If it is false, there we were ending the program, that this block will be not be executed and will be ending the program in the previous example we are seeing. But when we write if else together, then if it is not true, then else block will be executed. So this is going to be happening here. So if else statements covers yes and no part, right? If it is true, it is going to be executed. The if conditions, whatever blocks inside this, whatever the code blocks, definitions is there. Otherwise, the else statements code block will be executed. We're going to see each and everything. What does it mean in our program one by one. Similarly, there can be multiple conditions. There we use else if conditions. So we write if, definitely one if and else will be there. And if there are multiple conditions are there, then we're going to use else if conditions. So this is going to be used there. So here we can see the statement which means the result would be executed. If this condition is not satisfied, it will check for this one. If this is not, it will check for this one. Whichever is satisfied, that will be executed. That condition will be executed. When no condition meets the result, the default else statement would be executed, that we know. If none of the conditions are satisfied, then else block at the last will be executed, because if these all are false, then else is going to be executed, that we know. This is what if else conditions and ladder statements. Now we're going to go to the VS Code and we're going to see the examples of if else and all the else if ladder statements. Then after that we'll jump to the switch statement, what is the definition of that, and we're going to see examples of that also. Right now we'll jump to the VS Code and we'll see the examples of if else statements. Now here we're going to see that how the if statement works basically, and we're going to see if else, then else if ladder, and nested if else also we're going to see here. I'm going to write all the syntaxes. We're going to see each and everything one by one. So for that, let's create one new file here and let's name it as 11 and write if else.c. And for that, we're going to write same thing, the header file hash include stdio.h, and I'm going to write the main function. Alright, the main function is written. Now what I'll do is I'll write the return at the last, return 0. Alright, this is done. Now what we'll do is we're going to apply the if statement first, then we're going to go with the if else and nested if else. What does nested if else and everything mean? So before that, let's declare one variable int number. Okay, one variable is declared that is going to store integer. It's an integer type. Now let's print it. Let's write printf statement and let's go to the next line, write printf, and after that we'll say enter the number. So we're going to compare one number with this. That's why we are writing a printing statement that enter the number. So we're going to take input. For taking input, we use scanf that we already talked earlier. Scanf is that keyword we use take input from the user, printf for printing. So scanf is going to take, so we're going to take input from the user. So we're going to take integer, so we write %d, right? And after that, what we'll do is we'll be taking the variable number here. So ampersand of number, this is how we're going to take input. Alright, this is done. Now we have taken the number as the input from the user. This is the variable we declared. Now we're going to write the if statement. This is how it is written. If is the keyword for that, and in round brackets we write the condition. Let's write number is greater than 10. Instead of 10 you can write 100 or anything, right? So I'm taking 10 as the value. If number are greater than value 10, we're going to input that number, we're going to input from the user side, from our side, right? So if it is greater than 10, then this block of execution code will be executed that we saw in the flowchart. And this is how we write in the parenthesis. We're going to write curly brackets. We're going to write the definition of it. That is the basically code block. I'm going to write printf statement here. So printf, and let's print the whatever the function definition we're going to give it here. So function definition I'm going to give it, I'm going to write %d. We're going to print the number there. So %d, that number is greater than 10. I'm going to write this, and I'm going to give next line here. And after that I'm going to take the variable. What is the variable name? Variable name is number. Alright, so this is the statement execution is going to happen, because number, when we enter the number greater than 10, then this block will be executed, because this is the condition for that. Then this statement will be executed, right? Now I'll write one more printf here, and in that printf statement what I'm going to write is, here I'm going to write end of if block. Here I'm going to write end of if block, and I'm going to the next line /n. Okay, this is done. Now I'll come out of this scope of this. I'll come out of the scope of if, and here I'm going to write one more printf. And what I'm going to write here, why I'm writing, I'll let you know. Here I'll say end of main method. So if this block is not executed, then only this block should be executed, right? Because it is coming from top to down, right? So what will happen, this will execute it. If it is executed, then this 2 will be printed and this will also be printed. I have to use semicolon here. So this 3 will be printed. If this doesn't execute, the line number 13 will only be executed, right? We at scanf we have used, so we're going to give input from our side. Let's hit Control S. What I mean by this, I'll explain again. Control S. I'll click here and I'll clear the terminal. And what I'll do is I'll right click here and run the code. Okay, I run the code. So it is asking for the number, right? So we're going to, because which line is executing, this line number 5 is getting executed because it is asking for the number. Scanf is that taking input from the user. So let's enter the number to be value to be, let's say 30. Let's enter 30 here. So is 30 is greater than 10? Yes, 30 is greater than 10. So 30 is greater than 10 is going to be executed percentage D. That 30 is greater than 10 will be printed. Then end of if block will be printed, and after that end of main method will be printed. 3 statements will be printed. I'll hit enter here. So you see 30 is greater than 10, end of if block, end of main method. Okay, let's run this code again. Run the code. Alright, it is asking for the number. Let's enter some value which is less than 10. It means this if block will not be executed. We already said that whenever this condition is not true for a if, then the whole code block will not be executed. We have seen that in the flowchart also. So let's enter some value. Let's say 5 I am entering as the value here. Now if I hit enter, it means this part of the code will not be executed because 5 is not greater than 10. This condition is not true, right? So what will this print statement will only be executed. Let's hit enter here. So here you see you enter the number 5 and end of main method. Only this is print. It means this is not executed. By here we can see. So this is what if statement. This is how if statement work. Now we're going to see other examples with that. So before moving to the next example, let me show you one thing here again. So here we have used curly brackets, right? So if you don't use curly brackets also, the if statement will work. But for that, what will happen? Let's remove this block for a second, this line of code, right? So if the declaration of if block, if you do not specify the statement using the curly bracket, nothing but those braces, then only the first statement will be considered. Only this first statement will be considered as the if block statement. So if you don't write the curly braces also, that is completely fine, but will not write that way. Will always practice in the curly braces always. Alright, so let's run this code. So what I'll do is first I'll clear the terminal first. Alright, now I'll run the code. You'll see the code will be running completely fine. So if I enter here 30 again, so then 30 is greater than 10 and end of it's okay. I didn't save the code, that's why it is end of if block is printed again. See, this is I'm commented out, still it is printed because I didn't save. You see white dot here, so it's very necessary to hit Control S first. Control S, it's gone now. Now I'll clear the terminal and I'll right click here and run the code. If you see, the code is running completely fine. It is considering the first line to be in the if statement and rest lines are not considered in if statement. But best practice is to write the curly braces as the previous, right? If I write anything like, let's write 30, so 30 is greater than 10 and end of main method, it is getting printed. Similarly, again, if I run the code, right click, run the code, and if I enter 4 here, so the end of main method, this is not getting executed. So this is to be remembered. What I'll do is I'll write the round parenthesis here. So this is the best practice to do. All right, this is how it should be done. Okay, let's move to the next examples and see how if else block work. Now we're going to see all the if else questions. Now we're going to solve some questions and you will understand everything about if else. For that, what we'll do, I'll create another file and write it 12 and I'll write if else dot c. I'll write if else 1.c, right? Okay, now for this again we'll do the same thing. What we write the header file. For that, hash include std.h. Alright, now we'll write the main function. Similar fashion we write every time. So we'll write the function this way and this is main function is created. And we need to remember that it's integer type, return type is integer, so I have to return something. So I'll return 0 here. Alright, this is done. Now we want to see the example of if else. So let's say we want to find a number is even or odd. So there are two cases, right? Either it will be even, a number will be even, or it will be odd, right? So for that we'll take input from the user. We're going to write it in that in the compiler, that we take the number, then we will take input, and in that way we'll write the code. So for this is the code for what? Find the number is odd or even. Alright, this is the problem statement. Okay, now let's jump to it. So how we'll start that? First we want to declare one variable, that let's say integer and variable name to be number. Alright, so this is what we declared, one variable, and that name is number. Number is of integer type, it's going to store integer. Alright, now we're going to have a scanf statement also. So for that, what we'll write is scanf, and what we're going to do is similar %d will be using. We know that for integer we use %d, and I'll come out of it and I'll write the ampersand address of number. This is how we take input. Alright, now this is input we have taken. Now we have to write, okay, before scanf what we'll do is I'll write one printf statement, so that in the compiler we get to see that what we have to take, like input from our side, what we have to give. So for that I'll use printf, and here I'll write what? Enter the number. So this is how it is done. Okay, so this much is clear, that we have told that enter the number and we have taken the input. Now we have to check whether that number we have taken, that is odd or even. So for that we'll be using modulus. That modulus thing we learned, right? Percentage. Okay, so for that I'll write if. So this is the basic, we'll write the basic template first, and I'll come out of here and I'll write the else. So this is the template for if else. Like this is the basic syntax of if else. So what I have to write here, I have to write the condition in if else. So condition is what? If number variable is divisible by 2, then it's a, if it is divisible by 2, then it's a what? It's a even number, right? Because whatever number which divides by 2, that's an even number. That is by mathematics we know. So if this condition happens, %2 means what? if the number is divided by 2 and remainder to be 0, right? Because percentage give us what? Remainder. So that remainders become 0, then that time we can say that is a even number, and that is divisible by 2 basically. Alright, so I'll write one statement will be executing here, and that will be what? We'll be writing percentage d, and we'll say what is a even number. So this will write, and I'll come out of it here, and I'll write the variable name. So what is the variable name? Variable name is number, and come out of here, I'll end the statement. Okay, now let's come to the else part. If it is not even, if it is not divisible by 2, divisible by 2 means remainder 0. If it is not divisible by 2, definitely that would be an what? Odd number, right? So in the else, what we'll write is, we'll write the printf, and here what I'll do is, I'll say percentage d, that value whatever that we have entered is an odd number. This is very clear, and will print the variable number, that is the number is storing the value. Here I'll end the with semicolon I'll end the statement. So this is all done about if else, you see, and we did one program that is finding the number is odd or even. I'll hit Control S first, and I'll click here and clear it out first. Okay, now I'll right click here, run the code. It is asking for the number because we have used the scanf, right? Enter the number. So it is asking me for the number. Let's enter 55. So 55 is odd number, we know. So it should print 55 is an odd number. If I hit enter, so we can see that 55 is an odd number. It came, right? Let's run the code again. So let's say we'll enter 20. So 20 is even number, we know. If I hit enter, it should print that it's an even number. This if statement should be executed. Alright, 20 is an even number. So this is how it works. Alright, this is if else statement we learned, right? Now we're going to see lots of things in if else. So let's take another example on if else only. So I'll create one more file. If I don't use this parenthesis, this brackets, what will happen, that we'll see now. Alright, I'll write 13 if else 2.c. Alright, so here I'm going to write again the header file hash include std.h, and I'll write the main function again, int main. Alright, this is the template, basic template for C program. So this is done. Now what I said, that if here we are writing the parenthesis, right? So if I don't write in the earlier section also, I told you guys that one statement is allowed after if or else that will be executed, right? If I don't mistakenly, but best practice is to write this parenthesis every time whenever you write if or else. But if you don't write that parenthesis, that is also completely fine. Now see what will happen. If I give condition 1 equals to 1, it is always true. So it is going to be printed always, right? So I'll be using printf, and here I'll be writing, let's say hi, and I'll give our next line to it. Alright, I'll end with semicolon. So this is in the if, right? Okay, what I have to do is I don't have to write in parenthesis, so I'll remove that. Okay, now I have to write in else, and I'll not write the parenthesis here also. Still it will work. Only work for what? Only work for one statement. This only one statement will come to the if, and for else also that will be happening. So what I'll write is, I'll write printf, and let's write here hello. Okay, and I'll go to the next line. Alright, this is done. Now here I'll write one more printf and I'll write welcome. Welcome here, and I'll give again /n, so it is going to the next line. So it's going to give the enter to every line, right? Okay, what do you guys think, that this printf belongs to else? No, this printf doesn't belong to this else. Only this line number 8 belongs to else, because what I said, if you don't use parenthesis, only one statement is allowed to be included in that. So this printf is belong to line number 6, belong to 5. If I write any one more line, so that time it will give error. Similarly, for else, what will this line number 8 belongs to else, but line number 9 is not belonging to this one, right? So 1 equals to 1, we know every time. So it means hi, and what will be printed? Welcome here will be printed, because hello will not be printed. This will be printed and this one will be printed. This is the example to explain you that without using parenthesis you can use, but for only one statement. Alright, I'll clear this, and before that, running the code, I have to save it because white dot is coming. So I'll hit Ctrl S. Okay, I'll right click here, run the code. After running the code, you can see hi and welcome here is printed. So it must be looking like that it's in the else statement, but it is not. Line number 9 is not in the else statement. So this is what I wanted to explain, that I did. Now we're going to see the nested if else statements. So what does nested if else means in C? Nested if else means inside if we're going to write another if. So that is what nested if else statements basically mean. Alright, so I'll create one more program for that to understand the nested if else. So here I'll write it 14 nested if else dot C. Similarly, we'll include the header file, hash include stdio.h. So nested if else means what I said. Nested if else statement means inside if. So we have written only if statement and else statement here. So inside if you can write another if else. So that is what nested, and inside else also you can write another if else. So here we have written if else statement, right? So inside this function definition, this is under this definition of this if, we can write another if else. All right, so that is going to be nested if else, right? So we're going to see that thing, how does this work. So we'll write only if statement, and we're going to see that we'll not write else for that, or we can write it. So we're going to see that what does that mean. So for that, I'll create one main function, and what I'll do is same thing as we usually do, return 0. Okay, this is done. Now I'm going to declare one variable, let's say int, x equals to, let's say 12. Let's declare one variable. I declared variable x, that's of integer type, and it stored value 12, right? And I write if statement here. So if I have written I equals to 12. So here what I have taken, not I, it will be x. If x equals to 12, so this 12 is equals to 12. It means the statement is true. I'll open the parenthesis for this, right? If this is true, right? So what I'll do, I'll write one more if inside this. If x is less than 20. If it is less than 20, it is going to be, next thing is going to be executed, right? So inside if, we're going to write one more statement. So What I'll write? Printf. Here I'm going to write what? X is smaller than 20, isn't it? X is what? X is 12. So 12 is less than 20. So 12 is less than 20. That is correct, right? This will be executed if this thing happens. All right. Now, one more if I can write here, that if X is less than, I say 15, again I'll say inside this if I'll write printf statement, printf, and here I'll say X is smaller than 15, right? I can say that. And with this if I can write one else statement also, else print X is greater than what? 20. All right, so this will be printed. So we are writing this. What I will be doing is, let's write 15 here. Okay, now what we did, we have written one big if here, and inside that we have written lots of if else statements, right? Now let's understand one by one. Okay, let's not complicate the code. So what is going to do is, we're going to remove few lines of code here. So what we'll do, inside if we'll write if else statement only. So what we'll do, I'll just remove these things. So we're going to see other things in the ladder statement there, right? So if X is less than 20, we're going to say X is smaller than 20. Otherwise we'll print that X is greater than 20. So this is what nested if else, if you can see, this is what nested if else statement. So inside if there is another if else. For this if, no else statement is there, that is need to be taken care, right? So what will be printed? X is what? 12. 12 is equals to 12. It means this if statement will be executed. So 12 is less than 20. It means X is smaller than 20. It will be printed here. So I'll hit Control S, right click here, run the code. So you see X is smaller than 20 because our X is 12. So this is what nested if else statement is. Now next thing we're going to see ladder in if else statement. Ladder means what? We have studied about that in the presentation. Now we're going to see that thing, what is else if ladder is. All right, so what I'll write is, I'll take another program and write 15 else if ladder.c. all right, here we're going to write another same thing. Will include, and I'll write the header file. Okay, I'll write the main function int main, and I'll write the return statement here also. Okay, this much is done. Now we have to write ladder. We know that when it comes, ladder if else comes when multiple conditions are there. So for that, what I have to do is, let's create one variable I equals to 20. All right, now I'll write if statement here, and what I'll write, if I is equals to 10. If I is equals to 10, that time do what? Print. That time print that I is 10. All right. Now, if this doesn't happen, then we'll write else if. So this is what ladder is. So here we'll write another conditions. If I is equals to 15, that time print that I is 15. Alright, so this is one condition, else if. We'll write one other condition, else if. So this is what ladder is. Okay, here I want to write if I is equals to 20, that time print. So here you can see multiple condition, one condition, two condition, three condition, right? So multiple condition you can write. So that time write printf statement, and here you write I is 20. Alright, if this is also not true, in the else statement will be executed. So in the else, what I'll be writing is, I'll be writing the printf statement, and here what we'll write is I is not present. So this is what need to be done. This is what else if, this is what ladder in else if, right? So this much is done. I'll save the code, Control S. I'll click here, I'll clear it. Then I'll right click here, run the code, and it's printing I is 20. This line is getting printed. It means this condition is not satisfying, this condition is not satisfying, this is satisfied. So I is 20, it's printed. Alright, so this is what else if ladder. Alright, now we're going to move to the next part of the program, that is the switch statement. We're going to see how switch statement is useful.